Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about one of the common problems I've seen out there for people who do minimalist type training. And that's something that for a while I actually said, hey, minimalism is fine in a lot of conditions. I even trained for a while with minimalism, and I personally experienced this. This is something I see among my clients as a strength coach, and it's a very real problem, and that is that if you have been doing minimalist training, odds are your triceps are a weak link in all of your pressing. Okay, and when I say all of your pressing, I don't just mean the bench press. I mean your press, which, again, the standing overhead press is called the press. Your triceps are going to tend to be the weak link in general. And I'm going to give some recommendations as far as how to correct that. But why is it a weak link? Well, it has to do with the fact that, particularly for bench press, the triceps absolutely are a primary mover. They tend to oftentimes be a limiting factor on the bench press, but in terms of their direct stimulation, when you look at a lot of the EMG data, the triceps don't get particularly stimulated maximally from bench pressing. And that's just a reality. The pecs take most of the workload, and depending on what your technique looks like, the front delts also. But your pecs tend to take the workload on the flat bench. They just do, and the triceps matter, they contribute, but it seems like their actual activation isn't particularly high from a stimulation perspective. Now, for the novice, that doesn't matter. We have studies that have looked at bench pressing and have found that bench press can induce maximum hypertrophy in the novice lifter. So, they start doing a lot of benching and they see their triceps growing, and they're probably doing curls and stuff too, so they see their arm growing overall. You look at the studies that are there and they show that adding extensions to the bench press if the volume is high enough for novice lifters doesn't seem to cause any extra growth. So, you go through that novice phase of just doing benching and, some overhead pressing, and your triceps really don't grow enough. They grow, but at a certain point, they stop getting really your minimum effective volume to continue to grow. And then eventually, all your pressing starts to stall. The pressing starts to stall. And if you actually make your triceps grow from there, it tends to start going up again. And for me, triceps are still a weakness because I did quite a couple of years of minimalist training, right? Several years of it. And accordingly, my triceps are still a weak link. They've made progress. They've gotten a lot stronger, getting decently strong at tricep movements. You guys are watching me do there. I'm doing like sets of 10 with 250 on the closed grip press. I can do JM presses with a pretty good amount of weight. I've been bringing them up a lot, and accordingly all my pressing is going up. But what ends up happening is that the more advanced you get, the more the need goes up to start training your triceps directly. So here's what I would say. It's a good idea if you just start doing it early on. Just start training your triceps early in your training. Okay, and I have all of my guys at the very least do band press downs. Right, even my novice lifters, I have all of them do some tricep work. Because I know based on my experience that if they don't, it is going to prevent them from being a strong bencher. Same thing if we don't do upper back work, right? If I don't have guys doing upper back work, meaning rows and stuff like that, and I let them only do chin-ups, their bench press is going to stall accordingly. And it's not to say that chin-ups don't help, just don't get the upper back as much as we would want by themselves. So these are things that you should just do early on. So what happens when you get stuck? What happens when you say, oh my God, my triceps are a weak link? Well, here's the next problem you run into. If you train for quite a few years and your triceps haven't gotten trained adequately, and you start training them, what happens? You start to get tendonitis in your elbows. And I've seen this very, very quickly. I've seen this with an advanced lifter who I have him past the 300 bench now, but he was at something like a 280 bench when I got him, and his triceps were obviously his weak link. Well, I had him start doing closed grip pressing and some light dumbbell work. What do you think happened? He started getting elbow tendonitis. He started getting pain in his elbows in like 3 workouts. Okay? Within 3 workouts, he was getting elbow pain. So what do we have to do at that point? You have to go in and you have to do a ton of high rep band press downs. And I had to cut all the extensions out. Let him still close grip bench. And we did tons and tons and tons of band press downs. Had him do them every day. So here's what I'm going to say. Based on my experience, before we get into all these other lifts you see me doing, JM presses, rolling extensions, right? You could do Tate presses. All this stuff to work the triceps in a way that makes you stronger at pressing, because not all parts of the tricep contribute the same to your pressing strength. Right? Not all of them do. I'm very specific in my recommendations these days for improving pressing strength. And it doesn't include a lot of work for the long head. And as you guys notice, medial head tends to take the brunt of most of the training that I recommend. Obviously, all three heads get stimulation, but that medial head particularly, because that's the one that's going to limit your bench. That's the one that you need to bring up to really get strong at pressing, right down at the elbow. You have to. But what you're going to need to do right on the front end is tons of band press downs. Just accept it. Start doing sets of 20, 30, 40 reps every single day with a mini band. Okay, and don't even worry about what I used to show you guys before of trying to get that stretch at the top and get the long head. Don't even worry about that. Just keep the elbows down at the side and just use the stretch reflex at the bottom. Use the overspeed eccentric and just rep it out. You're going to need to build the tendons up. You're going to need to get blood flow to the connective tissue. You're going to need to hypertrophy the tendons, strengthen the tendons, because the tendons are going to be weak. Your elbows are going to be weak. And you're going to have to do that before you can start doing all this tricep work, or you're going to start having elbows that hurt. And I'm just telling you how it is. That is what you're going to have to do. At least 50% of the time. So just go ahead and accept it and do it. If you've been doing minimalist training, just go ahead and start doing all your band press downs now. I have to have all my clients do this who have underdeveloped triceps before I even throw a bunch of tricep work at them, because I know what happens. Their elbows start hurting. We have to build all that connective tissue up. To build the work capacity of it up, we have to build the recovery of it up. Then we come in and do all the other stuff. I might have them start close grip pressing at that time, but the close grip still doesn't hit everything as hard as you want, does it? Right? It's still not everything that we want, because it hits the triceps harder than a flat bench, but not as hard as these other movements. It's a good start. After you've put in the band time, several weeks, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of doing the band press downs every single day, and you started incorporating close grip pressing, you're going to want to start doing the bands the first day you start close grip pressing a lot, because that might start hurting your elbows. Once you've built all that connective tissue up, which takes time, then we can start incorporating other stuff. What do we mean? Things like the JM press. And you know what? If you go too heavy too quick on the JM press, your elbows are going to hurt. I think the JM press is phenomenal, but it could be a bit much for a lot of people who, again, haven't strengthened their elbows and who, again, aren't paying attention. Or if you try to go too heavy too quick. You try to go too heavy on it, elbows will hurt. And it's because you're getting inflamed connective tissue. You might have to go ahead and start with the rolling extensions, which you guys saw me do there. Tricep rolling extensions. Well, what do we do with those? The only real shoulder movement is to get the weight started. Right? We're just getting a little bit of activation there from that long head, and then we almost press it up. It's a roll and then almost a press. Slight hybrid movement there, but it hammers the lateral and medial head really hard, and your elbows are kept in. The elbows are kept in, but we also do that roll so that we don't rub the tendon the same at the bottom. We don't want all that weight. We want a little bit of inertia out of the bottom so the tendons aren't being rubbed against the bone, because that's what happens when we tuck those elbows in, right? It hurts. So we do it for that reason. We do it to avoid that extra inflammation on the tendon, and then to focus on the heads of the muscle that we want to bring up. Okay, you could do Tate presses. If you don't know what those are, you can look those up. Very lightweight, small exercise, right? You can do it with dumbbells. You can attach bands to it. Tate presses, okay, that will help bring that up. And once you've built your elbows up enough and done some of those, you could probably start doing JM presses. JM presses will work wonders. But again, you're going to have to rotate it. It's going to be a movement you might be able to get away with it for a while, and then at a certain point you might need to do reverse bands. Because if you have a history of having a tricep weakness, it means your tendons probably are going to need many months and possibly years of extra hypertrophy to get everything caught up. So you're going to have to pay attention to that stuff. So again, you might have to do stuff like a reverse band on them just to unload it at the bottom and then work it harder at the lockout so that, again, it's easier on the tendons. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.